Hello, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are in the world, no matter what time it is where you are, wherever this video has found you. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today, or whichever day that you end up seeing this video. My name is Marissa Nystrom. I'm part of the community team here at Tongal, where we are on a mission to bring the world's creative work to the world's creative talent. Right now, you can get to work on a number of briefs from clients like Ad Council, NASA, and a whole lot more launching soon. You can always check out our open projects page right now and keep an eye out because I know that there are some exciting projects launching later this week. Today, I am joined by post-production supervisor and Tongal community member, Tucker Dansie. Hi, Tucker. How's it going?
Hey, how are you?
I am very good. How has everything been going with you in your neck of the woods? You're in Utah.
Yep.
You guys are still at home.
They've sort of softened it a little, very mildly, to see how things go. So some stores are opening back up and stuff like that. But I'm still working remote. Most people I know are still working remote if possible. So
if possible, and thankfully, we're able to do that as well.
Yeah.
So Tucker has been in the biz for over 25 years. And as you can imagine, he's worked on all kinds of projects. So we're lucky to have him here today to chat about all things post-production. So I understand that you are a post-production supervisor in your day job. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And I'm going to go ahead and pull up this lovely, first of all, I really love that you've created a presentation for us, which really speaks to the organizational nature, I think, of your mind and the kind of work that you do.
Yeah. Or maybe the controlling part of my mind. I don't.
I mean,
either one.
You got to put a positive spin on it, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, in my day job, well, there's a couple of things I do. I mean, in my day job, I'm a full-time post-production manager and supervisor, and I can tell you a little bit about that. And then, nighttime or on the side doing a lot of freelance directing and stuff. So, and I have 5 kids. That was
yes.
So I'm busy. I'm plenty busy. But yeah, my day job is so I'm the post-production manager for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have a motion picture studio in Provo. It's about 30 minutes south of me. Where most of the team is, and then some people are up north, about 15 minutes downtown. And my job is to manage this team of, we have about 15 editors, 4 audio mixers, 2 colorists. We have 2 different teams of asset management, each that have, about 4 people per team, and then working with outside vendors, VFX vendors and stuff like that. So primarily my job is to manage, resource manage those people. And then also work with people on my team to create, workflows. Every job, every project we're about to work on is always a little bit different. It might need a little tweak to the workflow. Because we're doing anything from super short stuff, for the internet all the way up to theatrical stuff. We had a documentary that actually went theatrical about 4 years ago called Meet the Mormons. Just talked about different people that were members of the church just having regular lives, and that went theatrical and was pretty cool. And so I primarily post supervise some of the bigger shows, that are more complex and need a post supervisor on them as much as possible. And since I already know everybody's schedules and I'm already, kind of knowing what everybody's working on, it's easier just for me to jump in and supervise those big shows, especially if we're working with lots of vendors. And then I have a great post coordinator that works with me, and she handles all the smaller stuff, which is just, hey, we just need to get this producer hooked up with this editor and get it done. And we do a lot of language work as well. So after the thing's been created in English, we do what's called the I-10, Internet 10. So we're getting that audio and we're changing the graphics, and we'll put an editor on that to do that kind of stuff.
Nice. Sounds like a pretty big team and a lot to manage. So you have to, I'm sure, have a very specific system in place to make sure all that's running smoothly. And
sometimes multiple systems in place.
All of the systems.
Yeah, in fact, like, so this is just a very quick overview of kind of like, I think it's good to show because later I'll show you a smaller version of this, but this is like a workflow that we use that's pretty generic, but it's for large things. You know, you get camera and you're either getting cards or a hard drive, or someone's actually on set. They drop it off to our asset management team, who offloads it, archives it, and then we create a standard file naming structure, and we standardize everything. So if it's shot on an iPhone to, you know, if it's shot on an Alexa or a Canon, it doesn't really matter. We standardize it all to DNX HD, and then it goes into post, producer approves it, and it goes back to asset management at the end. So asset management really spans that entire thing. And that's kind of the way we do it. And yeah, so it's a big process with a lot of people involved, but that's to protect our data at all times. Interesting thing is these asset management guys are actually setting up the editorial project for the editor. So an editor should just be able to come in, sit down, start working on their work. And if we're following kind of standard folder structure, file structure, then every editor knows where everything is. Every person in post, the colorist, everybody knows where all the stuff is. We don't have to go hunting and looking for it. So
absolutely. And we're definitely going to get into that some more in detail today. Yeah. So just for everyone that's joining us right now, please, if you have any questions along the way about post-production, all that good stuff, anything that comes up as we are chatting, please go ahead and leave us a comment. We're going to get to as many answers or questions as we can throughout the show.
Yeah, please.
And if you are just joining us, I am Marissa from Tongal, our community team, and I am joined by Tucker here today, who is a post supervisor by day and Tongal community member by night and also day.
And weekends.
And weekends, exactly. And if you are here with us live, we'd love for you to say hello. I see that we have Jen in the audience, one of our animators. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see folks in the audience. And then I know, Tucker, you've recently were working on a Tongal project. I kind of wanted to chat about that. I don't know if, should I leave that to later? I know it's later in your presentation.
No, if we can jump to that if you want, or if you want to.
Yeah, let's jump to it.
Let me just play you this stuff, and this is nothing. This is just a trailer for one of the big projects that we're working on. Perfect. And actually, this is the first year trailer, but we split it into seasons. We have we're waiting to start shooting our 4th season. But this is all this is a really high end workflow. Mm-hmm. You know, so again, trying to talk about that scale. This is super high end, 4K HDR deliverables, shooting on Alexa Minis and Alexas and all the big stuff. And so it's a lot of stuff for my team to kind of wrangle and put together. And we're cranking out dailies, you know, every day. So
oh wow,
this is a project that is on YouTube. It releases every Friday on YouTube. And then there's also that's the best place to see it. So it's just the Book of Mormon videos. And then
that's in a 4th season. Is that the?
Yeah. So right now we're in pre-production for the 4th season. We call them seasons. Each show is anywhere from 10 to 20, 10 to 30 minutes. It just depends on the story that's being told. And there's about 9 or 10 per what we call season. So we try and shoot every summer, and then we do post. Basically when they're done and start releasing in March. So yeah, it's a big show. We're going into what we call our 4th season. So lots of visual effects, lots of
it does look very shiny.
Yeah. It's very, it's one of the bigger, the Book of Mormon for us is one of the important things for us to be able to teach, and visually is an awesome way to teach that for people. So
very cool. And then I know you also do some work, obviously, for your own enjoyment and excitement.
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of just kind of freelance stuff. Sometimes that's just for fun, honestly, just to try and keep your skills sharp. I did a documentary a few years ago that is on Amazon Prime called Recommended Daily Amount. And it was in the health documentary, kind of phase when everybody was doing that. And I took myself off of sugar and caffeine for 30 days just to see how it would affect me. And it was interesting. So, but right now,
what did you learn from that experiment?
That going off of caffeine is super hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And I didn't last very long. Let's just put it that way. But yeah. And then lately, the thing I've really been focusing on is a lot of music videos. Some local artists that I found that, they're kind of up and coming. And so it's nice to jump in because they kind of let me have freedom to do fun things, I guess is the way to put it. So, and then any kind of social media advertising is a big thing too. Everybody wants to be able to tell their story in 15 seconds or 60 seconds.
Absolutely.
If you want to, do you want to play a little bit of this video?
Yes.
Just a
I
snippet.
queued it up and everything.
Thank you.
So
yeah, we'll see.
And that was one of the videos that you shot yourself, right?
Yeah, so this is a local rapper named Rufio that I've just become friends with, actually doing a short documentary on him just to tell his story. But yeah, honestly, it's just him and I in a room, and we've done 4 or 5 together.
Cool.
And so it's just us having fun, being able to kind of riff off of each other. I'm a big fan of hip hop, and that's not super easy to find good hip hop in Utah. So he's really good. He's great. He's great. He's great to work with, and up and coming. And yeah, you can see all of his work on YouTube. It's just Rufio SLC. So
that's really cool. I love that you're a rap music video director.
I am a hip hop aficionado, and what's funny is Rufio here is about 20 years younger than me. And yeah, we have the best conversations about like old school hip hop. Once it hits about, anything in the last 5 or 10 years, I don't understand what he's talking about. But take me back to the Beastie Boys and I understand it. But
are there any like hip hop directors that you look towards, like their work when you're working with him?
Absolutely, that's a great. I mean, so I'm like super heavily inspired by Beastie Boys and all of the music videos they did. So a lot of those are done by Spike Jonze, but a lot of those were directed by MCA from the group. He had this persona, Nathaniel Hornblower, and he probably did their first 5 or 10 videos, and just like very simple setups, but have something cool. Maybe I'm a one-trick pony, but I do a lot of the method where if you speed up the song and they perform it at 125% or 150 if they can do it, then you slow it down in post and it looks like they're going slower, or vice versa. You can do it. The first video I did with him, they did it slower, and then when we sped it up, it looked like he was going faster. That's an old Spike Jonze trick that he's done on thing. Every Beastie Boys video you see is shot so it looks like it's in slow motion, and yeah, so definitely a huge influence.
Very cool.
Yeah, I've done some other music videos in the past, and it's just I have a full-time job, so I won't really do a music video unless I really love the song. And I have people approach me sometimes, and sometimes it's like, yeah, it's not the fit for me, but he and I have created a good relationship. So, and so you can see the scale, right, of stuff I'm working on. Super big. This is kind of just one-man band stuff, and yeah, that's where, the little tyke stuff that you had talked about. That was, so I have, been following Tongal for a while, and this was one that made sense for me to pitch on. I mean, I'm home with 5 kids where, this was right when the shelter in place for us happened. And so I jumped on it. And also we have some friends of our family that live down the street that have, a family. They have a family of 7 kids. I've got 5 kids. They've got 7 kids, and 3 of their kids have special needs. And so we thought this would be a fun thing just to do, right? Just to kind of get out there. And so I pitched on this, and Little Tykes chose me and a couple others, and it was fun. I mean, they sent toys, and honestly, we just shot this on iPhones. It was just meant to look user generated, kind of like next level of user generated, because
Like the nice kind where somebody actually knows how to use their iPhone.
Yeah.
They're very powerful machines.
Obviously I have a bit of a background in photography, and so I was able to shoot it. And then the other family that shot with us, that I would just have, it was not possible for us to be around them just because of health concerns. So they would go and shoot stuff, and then I'd give feedback and say, hey, let's frame it a little more like this, let's try it again. And they were totally into it. They were fine with it. I mean, they got a cozy coop out of it, so they're
it's cool. So iconic. I love it.
I know, right?
Yeah, and these videos are starting to roll out now. So it's in support of Little Tykes' World's Biggest Play Date, which is coming up this month, very soon, middle of the month.
I think Saturday.
Is it this? Oh gosh, we are almost
this Saturday.
This month is already going so quickly. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was meant to help like promote this initiative. I think last year maybe was the first year that they had this big like actual event where kids got together in cities all over the world to play and have fun. Obviously, the world has changed a lot in the last year, so they've pivoted to do a virtual play date and encouraging kids all across the world to still play on the same day with their families and their siblings, and post it to social. So I want to play the video that you created for this campaign. There we go. May 16th.
Yeah, May 16th. So we were asked to do five 15-second ones, and 3 of them are around a jump challenge, jumping 5 times, and then 2 of them are just generic. This is one of the more generic ones. So yeah, they're fun to do. You're playing so the trick to this is you're playing the 16:9 version. We had to deliver 16:9, 1x1, and 9x16 versions, which is always fun. So there was a lot of deliverables on that.
Seems to be the trend these days. There's so many platforms, there's so many places you have to deliver. That's actually an interesting question too. It's like, it brings to mind is, you've obviously have been in the business for a while and you've seen things change. And I think we'll kind of talk about that just in general. But with these like new, having to do different versions and having to cater for the platform, how you're creating, I'm interested to maybe kind of explore your thoughts on how that is as somebody who has to deal with so many assets.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, and we will talk about this later about how to make posts happy, but it's one of those things that you just have to think ahead and make sure that things are being shot the right way. I mean, I shot most of this, but for the example of my neighbors shooting this, I had to be very specific, like, please shoot it horizontally. Otherwise, they're just used to shooting stuff vertically. Shoot it horizontally, make sure your phone is set to 4K so I have the best image that I can move around and reposition and things like that. And the tools are starting to adapt to it, which is nice. Premiere's new version has an auto reframe. Yeah. I put it in quotes because it works. You have to tweak some things, but it uses some AI where it kind of tracks the people in it, and it gets you 50% of the way there for sure.
Right, it saves you some time for sure.
Yeah, and I know Avid is doing the same thing, and so it's just the way that we're going. Right. So,
since we're talking about programs, what do you normally work in? What is your
Yeah, so do you want me to take you back now or talk to you through everything that I've known? Where do you want me to go?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of get into maybe like your background. I think that's kind of the next bit here anyway, but
well, I think this will lead into the tools that I mean, because every kind of job is different, every show is different, and it might need a different tool, right? So this is the picture. This is legitimately me when I was probably...
I want to know everything about how this picture came to be.
Yeah, so I have 4 brothers. My oldest brother, who's 18 years older than me or something, this was a school project he needed to do for a high school project. I don't know, and on photography or something. My dad is a still photographer by trade, And so me and all my brothers always, whenever we were anywhere with my dad, we all had our own cameras. We all had our own still 35mm cameras. Even as a kid like that, I probably had my own. And so my brother was doing, I don't even know, but it was some project about photography. And so he just grabbed me, and there are multiple pictures of these. These are only the ones that I'm allowed to let people see. There's probably 10 different pictures of me in different stages of doing different things. And it's just fun to look back on. And
yeah, but you grew up in a house with cameras, with the
yeah, absolutely, with
cameras,
with still photography was the big thing. And my dad had a company that all the brothers kind of would work at. And this is 80s, 90s. So video wasn't a big thing yet. Primarily, my dad's company was doing multimedia slideshows, so 35mm slides, but 20 projectors all sunk up to music and stuff. And I remember when I was about 15, I'd go in and watch my brothers furiously programming these things. And then in the other room, they had just bought this thing called a Media 100. And a Media 100, Media 100 and Avid were kind of the first out of the gate in terms of nonlinear editing, because a lot of clients, when we had these 30 projector slideshows, you'd bring it to an event, set it up, and then you were done. So they wanted us to start recording it, right?
Wow.
So my dad and his company started investing in different kinds of gear to record it. Well, they had a Media 100 sitting back there, and nobody was doing anything with it. I was a 15, 16-year-old kid with an 8mm handy cam. And I was like, yeah, let's go get with my friends and make some cool stuff. So I just taught myself Media 100. We would film soccer games or dances, and then we'd make little montages out of it. I had no idea what I was doing, but we had so much fun, and this was the early days of mini DV starting to come in. So Media 100 was the first tool that I learned on. And then when I was done with high school, I really wanted to, I knew I wanted to go to film school, primarily for editing. And I wanted to learn the art of editing, right? I knew the tools. I knew how to use, at least I knew how to sit at a computer and use a Media 100, but I wanted to understand why I was making the edits that I made. And so I looked there at that time. This was 97-ish, 98-ish. There were actually, most schools were converted to Avid or shooting on all video, things like that. There were a few schools that were still shooting film, but then transferring to Avid. And then there was even fewer schools that were shooting film and letting you actually cut on a flatbed. So that's what I did. I went to a school called Vancouver Film School and their Film Foundation program. And primarily I went there to learn how to edit on a flatbed, one of these. That's what I wanted to learn, because, the term bin came from this. There was actually a bin of film. And so when you'd cut that, you'd throw it into the bin. And I always tell people, there's no undo button in film, cutting film. There's no Command Z. It's oh, I just threw that out. I got to put it back and tape it back together, or sorting through, literally on these, that's every scene or every take from those scenes. And so it was really eye-opening to learn that. Some of the stuff we did in the beginning was done in Avid, and that's where I learned how to use Avid Media Composer. So we did documentaries and just shot them on video. And I edited a documentary and helped finish off some others that were kind of left out there and needed some help being finished, because that was my forte, right? That's what I was learning. And then learning on the flatbed. And honestly, I just assumed that I'd kind of stick in post and editing and stuff, but I actually at school ended up writing and producing a short film, writing and directing a short film, and then producing another short film. So they were all shot on 16mm and all cut on those flatbed edit bays, which I think we were one of the last classes to do that in '89. And then they converted everything. They already had the Avid, so now it's just a matter of, after you shoot, converting the footage, converting the film to video so that they could edit.
Right.
And that's why I think some people kind of get stumbled up by Avid and the way that it works, because it does work like a traditional flatbed editor. You pull something out and it doesn't leave a blank space. It closes because it assumes you wanted to tape the thing next to it. So
that's just, just a continuation of that tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
I really love
Well,
the comment about like the bends being like an obsolete thing, but it still is relevant. But you just forget why it originated. It reminds me of, you know, kids today don't know what a floppy disk is, but they know that that's the save icon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very, very much the same thing. You know, and we would have dailies, which is still, or in Canada, they'd call it rushes. But yeah, it was like you would drop the film off that night, it would get processed the next morning. You'd come in and you'd sit in the theater and they'd lace it up and you'd watch everything you shot the day before. Now that's completely changed because now we have, you know, a DIT that can go on set and sit and be getting a feed from the camera, and the cinematographer walking over right after or maybe at lunchtime and looking, hey, what did we shoot this morning? And hey, man, this is way overexposed or underexposed, and they can fix it right. Like on the fly, which is pretty incredible. We didn't have that back then. Yeah, in fact, we shot one for my short film. We shot a scene. It was very easy. It was but it was supposed to be in slow motion of just a guy and a girl running at the camera. And when we processed it, it was not in slow motion, and we had the intervalometer and everything, and apparently the intervalometer had gone bad, and so we had to go and beg for more.
I don't even know what that is, but that sounds crazy.
Yeah. Just this little electronic.
Did you have to do math and science experiments?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But what was so great about this experience is at Vancouver Film School, they teach a new subject every day, right? So Monday is directing, Tuesday is cinematography, and so on. And it was cool to be able to have my dad as a resource, especially in cinematography, because it's all the same. You know, it's the same as shooting a 35 millimeter still. It's just now you're shooting 24 of those per second. So it's cool to be able to, you know, reach out to him when I was about to have a test or whatever, and be able to get help from him on, remember apertures that you used to teach me, and f-stops and t-stops and all those things. And so
was he excited that you went into this line of work, considering his creative?
Yeah, I think so. He moved off into the internet world when the internet got big, and so he's really big in internet security and things like that. But I think he was happy that I was carrying on, you know, the tradition of our family, just in a slightly in motion pictures rather than still. All my brothers and my dad and my brothers are very talented still photographers. I don't think I'm that talent. I'm probably the least talented of all the photographers, but I can still get stuff done, you know.
Right. So. It seems like you can't really compete if everyone else is doing it. You got to go do your own thing instead and say, well, you guys can't do this.
Yeah.
I would like to see you organize and edit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which actually kind of, I think, leads us into our next area here, where we're talking about actually organization.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing in organization, you know, with anything, bringing a project in, is if it's not organized, it's a mess for not only you, but anybody else down the line that has to pick it up later or has to, you know, work with you in color correction or audio or anything like that. And so there's lots. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think there's like always like a time in everyone's life where you go from this, like, especially I think now, like so many people do everything themselves, where it's like, okay, I'm doing this all myself. I'm in my bubble. I'm shooting, I'm editing, and whatever. But once you start to grow and you bring other people on, because you need to have specialists and a lot of work, then it's like taking that next step and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success. I think it's so important.
It becomes a real concern when you have to pass it to somebody. If you know, you have a file on your desktop or something, it's like, we're missing that one file because we put it on your desktop. So organization has been a big thing. And I mean, a lot of this is spurred by my work at the church, because they're using Avid and Premiere. And at the time where I started looking at this really heavily, we were using Final Cut Pro 7 back then. And so, you know, not just me, but several of us started to develop a folder structure that would just work. And I sort of adopted it for my freelance work. I know you guys on Tongal 101 have a similar thing. And I think it doesn't really matter as long as it works for you. But I'll kind of give you some basic theories that I kind of subscribe to. So the one thing is that these templates are just folder structures. They can be, you know, you might change it a little bit for Avid or a little bit from Premiere or a little bit for Resolve, depending on the software you're using. But basically just making sure that everything is getting into groups. I'm really big on using numbers. That's kind of like a Dansie family tradition, is to put 0, 1 in front of something to get it listed the way you want it, right? So for me, this has been bumping around for, who knows, 7, 8 years in different iterations, and this is an iteration that I like. It's preset so that I can just open a zip file and this is kind of what I get. And what I always tell people, especially like new editors that I'm showing this to, I say, I don't really care about what's inside of this, but please keep this folder structure, because at any moment, like I can go, yeah, my finals are always going to be in here, or I need some sound stuff, it's going to be in here, or the actual sequence is going to be in here, or documents, and use those for whatever you want. I don't think it really matters. And this is kind of there's a big blow up of it, but these are folders inside of there. And honestly, for the smaller things I do, I get rid of most of them. I keep maybe a few of them, but I'll sometimes keep a scripts or things like that, or add it as you need it, right? If you're going to go out to a colorist, well, yeah, then you're probably going to want to send a color that has all the things he needs, like an AAF and a reference video and all of that. And same with sound. And just keeping those things organized, I think, is not only helpful for you, but for, like I said, the people that you work with. And then I tend to do like a similarly mirrored structure inside. This is in Premiere. Similar, but like, again, breaking out all the video on its own, breaking out all the audio on its own, all the graphics on its own, and putting and I always bump my sequences to the top. That's just a thing that I do. And you can see down here, I've got the auto reframed sequences. So that's where I started reframing them. But there's lots of theories on how to do this. I just think it's just organizing so that it makes, you always can use the, I don't know if analogy is the right term, but the analogy of, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and somebody else needs to pick this up, can they do it? Well, make it simple enough that they can just keep working on it. I think most people could look at my folder structure and my sequences and go, yeah, they'll have to pick around a little to find the right stuff, but then they'll find it. And let me switch it over. So this is actually the project that I was working on for Little Tykes, and the one thing I want to touch on was versioning. There's lots of different ways to version, just depending on, but whatever works for you. The way that I do it is typically like, if this is the second I go in to start working on a new sequence. So these are the 5 different sequences that I would just duplicate this one, and then I would append it and call this, version 7. And then I just move this one into previous sequences. Now, the trick you got to remember is version 6 is still here. So you got to make sure that you open it, close it. And honestly, every day that I go to, especially on Little Tykes, every day, like every morning I would come in, I just open that up, make a bunch of new sequences that were the newest. And then as I got notes throughout the day or the evening, I would just introduce the notes. I know some people also like to, especially in the Avid world or on big features, they like to call it the active edit, which that's fine if that's the way you want to do it all as well. Or some people will just, just leave it blank and then version down, basically. So if this is now version, I move version 6 in, but I have a fresh version. So it really just depends. Active is always nice because that's the latest version. And then, like, if you were to prep this for color, you could change that to ready for color or something. This particular thing, I just did the whole thing in Premiere, including the audio and any color correction we needed. So yeah, that's a big thing I think that's important, is versioning. And this was just what I showed you before, but just a sort of a simplified version of a workflow that I would say for like a one-man band, the kind of stuff that most probably we're doing here on Tongal is like, hey, I shoot it, I put it onto a hard drive. I go in and I rename everything, right? So it's not just, especially if you're shooting on a phone or something, it's not just IMG, whatever. So I use Better Find a Renamer to just do batch rename it for that purpose. transcode it if you need to or if you want to, and then I start working. And then every night when I'm finished, I pull the whole folder up to a Dropbox to save in the cloud, and then once a week I have all of my projects backing up just to a RAID. So that shows, you had the big one that you had a lot more steps in there, more people. You can do it on a small scale yourself, and just organize like crazy, and you'll be successful. So,
if you take away anything today, it's just be organized and you'll be successful.
Yes.
I love it. Is there like a favorite part of the edit or the post delivery process that that makes you happiest, or is you're most excited to do?
Yeah, I mean, if it's an edit that like I'm doing myself, or even the ones that I supervise, that very first assembly is always exciting, especially like I think about the music videos that I do, and I go out, and sometimes my 14-year-old son will come with me just to help out, and I'll shoot a bunch of stuff, and then we'll get in the car and I'll start driving home, and I'll be like, I don't think that worked out. I don't know if I got anything good. And he's always like, whenever you say that, that means you got some good stuff. And then I put it in, I start loading it up, and it's funny, most of the music videos, I'm like, yeah, give me a week or so to put a rough cut together. And typically that afternoon I start organizing footage, and when I start seeing that footage come in, I'm starting to lay it down and doing that first cut, because it really gives you the vision of like, is this going to work or not? Right? Like sometimes it might not work, and sometimes you might have to, make some changes or some tweaks or something. So that first initial assembly is my favorite.
Nice. It looks like we got a question in, so I'm gonna pop it on up to the screen. Wait, where did I go? Now I've lost it because I'm dumb. All right, there it is. Ta-da! Oh, where'd it go? There we go. We have a question about organizing your footage. Do you tend to organize it by scene or subject matter? And does it matter?
Well, I mean, again, I think that's going to be personal opinion, but yes, I would. If you're doing like a long, like even a short film that has multiple scenes, or a feature, for sure, you're doing it by, organizing it by scenes. You can see on this edit here that I was doing. Can you pop that up for me? Sorry, I'll go back to it. You can just see how there were 5 different deliverables, and inside a video I had 5 different folders for the footage for each of those that had the footage for each of these. Right now we're talking a 15-second piece, so inside of that folder I didn't have a need to have wide shot, close up, anything like that, because you're talking like 15-30 clips is all. But yeah, that you could get as deep into that as close up, wide shot, take 1, take 2, take 3, things like that. The interesting thing that's starting to happen, and this is kind of an industry-wide change, if you use something like Resolve, and Final Cut 10 started to do this, people are starting to, metadata is a big thing. So yes, I organize it here, but if I were in Resolve, which I use sometimes, starting to get better with Resolve, but you can use a thing called Smart Bin. So absolutely, by subject matter, you could say all car shots. It maybe wouldn't be in the car shots folder, but you could create what's called a Smart Bin, and it would pull any shots in, reference any shots in that were just car shots only. So you can have it organized however you want, but then you're using the metadata. That takes incredible organization, because
that's super organization. But it's so great though when you do need, you have a really big project and you need to call back for something.
But that's important. The metadata has to be correct, right, and organized really well. On some of our really big shows, they're cranking through and applying the metadata as they create, and that metadata has scene and take numbers and wide shot, close up, all of that metadata. But that's something to look into. Is it just depends on how big and complex it is, but metadata is going to rule the world here shortly, and everybody's starting to go to that. So if you can search by it or search by name or anything like that. So yeah,
very cool.
Any of those are good.
Thanks for that question.
Yeah.
That was great. And I'll put this little reminder up if anyone else has any other questions about posts, you are more than welcome to jump in and ask us.
The only other thing I was going to say that I didn't focus on is not a big, I focused on it, but was just backing up. Like that's a huge deal, right? In my workflow where I'm doing, even on a small show, like I said, I'm backing up to the cloud each night and then backing up to a RAID weekly, just my whole project. Just make sure that you're doing that every single day. Just back up. Like,
I mean, those files are worth their weight in gold and beyond.
Yeah.
If you lose that, you're really in trouble.
Yeah. For sure.
Since you are somebody that manages so much data, I'm sure, and all of the media and everything, and organizing everything, as you are receiving like all these different edits or footage from probably various sources, I assume.
Yeah.
Is there anything that, like, from your point of view, that a filmmaker could be doing to make sure? Obviously, like, I think we've covered like organization is a big part of it, but is there anything else that like a filmmaker could do to make you happy when you receive all that in post for our filmmakers out there?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, if you are, and I know this kind of goes without saying, but it's not always followed. If you are going to send it to an editor or whatever, have a conversation with that editor up front. Like in my mind, I hate the fact that post-production is completely this separate entity, right? Like post should be one of the first people that you talk to. Hey, I think I'm going to go shoot this thing. And what's the end deliverable? And, you know, we help map out what's the end deliverable going to be, what kind of might influence the kind of cameras you're going to shoot on, or the, like I was saying, the resolution you're going to shoot at. So just having that, I know that sounds really simple and cliche, but just having a conversation with post. Some people just don't. Or on the reverse side, maybe they think that, oh, I'm just going to edit this myself. So they do whatever makes sense to them. Then when they have to pass it off to an editor, that becomes complicated. And I just get post involved as soon as possible. In fact, on our bigger shows, post-production are the people that are on set capturing the footage. You know, there's a guy from post sitting right there, either taking cards, taking hard drives, or, you know, as far as having like a whole workstation sitting there, getting footage in and cranking through the footage and color correcting it and everything on set right there. So post should be really part of production. And I think you see that shrink down as you get more one-man band type stuff. Yeah, it's the whole gamut. So just,
yeah. I think that's a really good note. Just communication in general is just, I mean, filmmaking, is all about communication. There's so much like that's in people's heads, and you've got to be able to communicate that to everyone on the team, across teams. And, you know, I think obviously the way that we work at Tongal is probably a little unusual, since there's we have our own like asset managers and post-production people that our community members deliver to, and you know, they do get that chance to kind of like talk one-on-one, but it is probably towards the end, and our producers are trying to set up the projects based around that. So we are having those conversations internally to like make sure we have everything we need and that we're set up for success. But you know, we try to just in general have that communication open and like let people ask questions through multiple channels, and like we want to be available, even though I know we're all behind a computer screen. We are real people over here, and we're like love to answer questions that people have.
Well,
so I think,
and the information that's on Tongal 101 is awesome. And I think, you know, sometimes,
that's a perfect segue for me.
I was going to say, sometimes when you see all this stuff, you're kind of like, oh, that's a lot of stuff I got to read through. But here's a great example, right? When I sent off stuff from Little Tykes, I think it was pretty well organized and stuff. I uploaded it to Asset Manager, and they basically came back and said, well, you know, your audio sampling rate is not to our standard. Great. And he just linked me to the standard spec sheet. Now, had I read that before and kept it in my mind, then he wouldn't have had to go like it would have passed QC the first time. So I think just being able to see those things and absorb all of that, you're always going to make mistakes here and there, but it just makes everybody else's job easier.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder, especially for anyone that's maybe new to Tongal or doing their very first project, that we do have these resources available. It's under the Tongal 101 drop down under for community. And there's a ton of information our post team put together a couple of years ago now. That really goes into everything from what should be in your first cut. It's very much like Tongal related, but you will find that there are things I think that are useful for anyone that wants to kind of button up their post-production workflows.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, if you scroll up there, I think it's the asset management guide.
Right here.
I think that's it. That is just another example of a folder structure, if that's the one I'm thinking it is.
Yep. Can you see that? There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it show the folder structure on there that like they kind of?
I don't think it's.
But maybe it's.
Yeah.
So see, this is very similar to this is literally what I just told you. Like, make sure you back up everything, and then make sure you have this. See, this is not exactly the way I do it, but it's familiar enough, right? Like, it's simple enough that I can go in and I can go, oh, my exports are there. Great. All my production documents are there. Or my project file. Great. Right. So this is a great starting point, or if this is the way you want to finish it out. I do similar down there in organizing my masters, especially as you're getting different, different crops and sizes and stuff. It starts to get a little confusing. And then, there's even some things in there that people might not know that, you should be prepared to deliver a clean master with no titles on it, the full master, a clean master with no titles, and then what they call stems, which is just the music or just the dialogue. But, Little Tykes was my first project with Tongal, and they were great about asking for those things. Hey, can you just send me the music? Can you send me this? And yeah, it's easy. Just crank it out.
Yeah, and I think, for all of our projects, I think in the brief it would say, like, if you have to deliver stems, if you have to deliver all that, it's in there. So you should be able to know ahead of time. So that's always good. But not all of them will require that. But
the people that you're working with and the producers and the asset management team are great about asking for it. And
yeah, so there's a ton of information.
Yeah, it's great.
So I definitely implore anyone who has not explored the Tongal 101 post-production section. That's a great place. I think we've linked to it on both our Facebook and YouTube streams here today, so you can continue your learnings around that. I know that we are getting close to the end of our time today, so if anyone does have any questions, now's the time to ask them. But yeah, it's been really great getting to chat with you, Tucker, and learn more about your process. Let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to ask you. I know I had a couple questions here. I guess, we talked a little bit about like how the technology has changed. I feel like it's like in every single facet of it all has changed. Yeah. It's hard to like pinpoint any.
And it's every day too. So I was just going to say that, was it Jen that asked the question? I don't know, based on her name, it's animated toon. So I don't know if she's doing a lot of animation strictly.
Yeah,
I still think it's super relevant to have, very organized folder structure so that your finals are in one place and all of your pieces. And again, the folder structure that I showed or is on Tongal 101 is probably very specific to video, but it doesn't matter. Rename your folder so that it's like, all my After Effects stuff is inside of the graphics folder. I always say, I don't care what you do, delete all the folders inside, just keep that core structure so that when I need to look for your After Effects files, I know they're going to be under graphics or under After Effects if there's a giant After Effects folder. So I think it's relevant to animation, to, guys just doing audio, to anything. It's you're never going to get it perfect. You're always going to mess something up. But I'll say that in my experience with, over like 5 different nonlinear editors, there's a consolidation tool that you can run at the end of a project, and it brings all of the everything into one folder, it always misses something. So never count on it. Like, be organized before. Don't let the system do it for you, because it just, I've had horrible luck where consolidate this and then it deleted something that was like the main shot or something. So just, then you don't have to consolidate if you've got it, if you've got it organized to begin with.
Yep. And, you know, you are always the person doing the quality control at the end of the day, and not the,
Yep.
the machine. But cool. I think we've reached our end. So I'm going to start wrapping it up if you're cool with that. Thanks to everyone for tuning in and asking questions. Jen, for asking questions. Thank you so much. It's been really great to spend this time with you and with Tucker. If you learned something new today, go ahead and give this video a like on your platform of choice. And Tucker, really, thank you so much for being so prepared and having such a lovely presentation for us, which I was really excited about. And it's fun to get to chat through your career and your experience and what you're working for on Tongal these days. So hopefully we'll be seeing you around these parts even more. I see you pitched on maybe a couple projects.
Yeah, I've pitched on a few, and we'll see. We'll see. Sometimes I again, Tongal 101 gives me all my templates and everything, and because it's like, how do you want me to pitch?
I made those.
They're awesome. They're awesome.
I'm always excited when people use them, because I'm like, oh, I did that.
Yeah, they're great. So
very cool.
Yeah, I hope I can do some more stuff. So
I'm sure we have not seen the last of you. Well, remember, everyone watching, to keep an eye out for even more community live streams coming soon. Next week, we will be having our friends from Final Draft actually on the program. We're going to be demoing Final Draft 11, talking through the software, taking questions from the audience. And we will also be kicking off a giveaway for 5 copies of the Final Draft software. So really excited about that as well. Hopefully you will be able to join us. Alrighty. Well, thank you all again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.